Part 124. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1232. The Great Master of Darkness jumped to the ground completely exhausted. At this moment, even the perfect state of mind he borrowed from the dam has been destroyed. In addition, the foundation of his own path has been destroyed, and he has completely become a useless person. A scammer, a village of scammers. The dark jumping god was already dying, but he still spoke angrily. He was extremely unwilling. As the third best person in the world, he was tricked today, and there was nothing left. Big liar, you are the real scammer. Uncle Zhao walked over with a cheerful expression and said, "Damn it, back then you first deceived us and refined our dark origins, turning us into white mist creatures. I thought you were a good person, but I didn't expect that you turned us into white mist creatures. Is to make us die and burn lamps, you are so bad." He looked disgusted. Although the second uncle and the others now have a deep relationship with Li Fan and others, everything in the past has disappeared. But, before and after they were fooled by the dancing master several times. "Let's go, follow us back to the village, I'll eat you." Uncle Zhao spoke. The people in the village were also very happy. Immediately, their figures gradually disappeared from this dilapidated mountain village. "Where is the Silent One? Where is the Silent One?" The dark jumping god called out the name of the Silent One angrily but received no response. He was tied up with a rope by Uncle Zhang and taken back to the small mountain village. "I haven't beaten enough." But the real dragon spoke with some reluctance and said, "Third place in the world, isn't very good either." However, the voice of Phoenix next to him came coldly. "If it weren't for the Taoist way and the peach tree reflecting the master's former shadow, I could suppress almost all the supreme beings in the world by myself. Where did you get the confidence? Is it true that the stronger the dragon clan is, the lower their IQ is?" When the real dragon heard this, he was immediately angry, but he had nothing to say. What Phoenix said is true. The master of dancing is known as the third in the world, and his record is completely achieved through hard work. Back when the great god Tiao was still a creature of the white mist, he suppressed the entire Dark Dome by himself, making the supreme leader in the Dark Dome unable to raise his head, and became a public enemy. Now, after being transformed into a dark creature, he is still the strongest. If the second uncle hadn't imitated Li Fan's way and perfected the way of Wu Dao, possessing the beginningless and endless dark jump god, he would also be invincible. This is the third best in the world. Huh? Someone is coming. At this time, Phoenix suddenly spoke and said, "The master's dark body? Nanfan, Xiling, and the others, have all been alienated." She had sensed something. "What? Take action, fight." The real dragon roared. "They are alienated, the master's anchor in reality will disappear. In this case, the master is likely to be lost." Phoenix also looked towards the peach tree and said, "Can we have a fight?" Her words were solemn. Even the real dragon couldn't help but look over. The dark jumping god is only the third in the world, but he is already so tyrannical. But what's coming now may be a dark form of Li Fan's past. Dosha thought for a moment and said, "There's no need to fight, retreat." In an instant, the small mountain village that Xuanhuan had worked so hard to build was completely deserted. All that was left was a mess, broken walls and ruins were everywhere, and all the building materials made from the bones of the Supreme were destroyed. However, thanks to this temporary small mountain village, otherwise the chi of the battle just now would have been released, which would have destroyed countless star realms in the god realm and caused a complete loss of life. At this time, a horse and a dog cart finally arrived here. "Wow, I'm exhausted to death, I'm exhausted to death." The big black dog gasped. On the luxurious black gold carriage, Li Fan looked up and felt a little dissatisfied, saying, Bitch, I told you to hurry up, are you so fast? The great dancer was hummed, but it's one of the few interesting things in the world. If you missed it, you should be punished. He shook his head. The big black dog was a little angry when he heard this. He wanted to say, if you really want to see it, do you still need a dog to pull the cart? I've arrived a long time ago. Hey, I can't see the dark dance master being beaten, so let's watch something else. Dark Li Fan spoke immediately, then waved his hand and continued to look back on the shadows of the years. Well, the dancing master has been beaten to death, so we have to look quickly. This time, he sped up. At this moment, another star realm in the god realm, the Cauldron Star Realm, finally ran out. Xuanhuan wiped the sweat from his face while running. When Tiao Dashan was thinking about the embankment in the dark, the soul of Tiao Dashan in the scene told him to run quickly, and then he ran away. Today, Xuanhuan possesses two supreme avenues, Wuguang and Wudong. You're a great dancer, you're so fierce, by yourself, you can almost overturn a car in a small mountain village. He couldn't help but speak. He knew how evil the small mountain village was, and even the darkness had to be avoided. However, the master of the dark dance, fighting an entire village by himself, can be called a pervert. But you are really cheating, even yourself. He couldn't help but sigh. He used his dark identity to trick himself into a small mountain village and was beaten. However, the evil sect in Xiaoshan village is an evil section, but those people are actually not too bad. Your dark body will not kill them all, right? Xuanhuan was a little worried, he didn't see the final outcome. After all, Uncle Zhang once gave him apples to eat, and Uncle Zhang also gave him money. Don't worry, I won't trick him into letting him in if I'm not sure. In the Taoist scene, the master of dancing opened his mouth leisurely and said, it's a pity that he definitely didn't dare to go to the real small mountain village, so we had to trick him into entering the fake small mountain village. If he were in the real small mountain village, I guess that silly dragon could take care of him alone. He seemed a little regretful and said, what a pity, Lao Zhao, Wu Dao's way, is amazing. Beside him, the Emperor of Thunder and Emperor of Water, who were squeezing his back, spoke in awe and said, Senior, you are simply invincible. Master Tiao shook his head and said, wrong, I used to be the third in the world, but now, well, I have to go back a little bit, the fourth in the world? I haven't seen the realm of the peach tree, maybe it is the fifth in the world? Plus, add Ao Bao Bao from now on. Yes, I have really become the sixth child. He looked so regretful. The Thunder Emperor and the Water Emperor were extremely shocked when they heard this. The master of dancing is so powerful, and he can suppress so many supreme beings by himself, but unexpectedly, he can only be ranked third in the world at most, and could he slip to sixth in the world? Senior, before, there were two people in this world who were better than you. The Thunder Emperor was simply unbelievable. Master Tiao said with emotion, that can no longer be described as strong. To them, the third best person in the world is just a slightly bigger ant. With just one thought, the whole world will perish. The Thunder Emperor and the Water Emperor both share a common concern. The dancing master has exceeded their imagination, and the two people who were evaluated by the dancing master. After all, how does it exist? My division is unique. On the other side, the lonely heart ape spoke coldly. Stop being alone, little monkey, let's go, I'll take you to find the light. Xuanhuan spoke expectantly and said, even if you forget everything, I will help you find it. And at this moment, in some place, looking at the darkest realm, Yun 11's eyes were like autumn water, filled with worry. Recall the last years, and then fall into constant forgetfulness, sinking into darkness, until I see a ray of light. Jizha opened his mouth and said, the second story begins. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1233. Time flies. After being betrayed, all old friends were swallowed up and alienated by the tide of darkness. The Silent One is telling the story calmly, with the memories of the past. He has sustained himself for a long, long time, maybe 1,000,000 years? Maybe 10 million years? Or even longer, so long that he has forgotten time. When time is forgotten, those old memories will gradually drift away. After all, in the hundreds of millions of years, the memories of decades, hundreds, or tens of thousands of years are too short to support the eternal loneliness. As for Xuanhuan, looking at the picture reflected in front of him, the picture kept going back and he had returned to the original starting point of this life. That was when Li Fan met his two disciples, Nanfeng and Ziling, in Xiantian realm. It was Long Zixuan and Lu Rang, entering the small mountain village without looking back. That was Dugu Yuking and Qing Chen, thinking hard about mathematics in front of the village but unable to solve it. That was Zhang Li lamenting the chess game in the small mountain village, and Wu Dade's anxiety when he saw the black dog for the first time. Also, when she entered the small mountain village for the first time, she met the second uncle sunbathing on the roadside. The second uncle told him that Xiao Li and the others went to have a barbecue. Then, she took the original White Tiger Immortal King to the barbecue place where Li Fan and the others were. At that time, she was full of confidence, but when she saw Li Fan, she instantly turned into fear. She thought Li Fan was Demon King. Along with the picture, she also recalled that Li Fan put on an apron for her and asked her to barbecue too. Thinking of Ziling painting, but unable to draw her, Li Fan drew her shadow with his own hands, which was the imprint of her life. Thinking of Li Fan giving her butterflies. The picture of this life has ended. Everything seems to be at zero. Even Xuanhuan seemed to have forgotten time. The reality may be that a month has passed, maybe half a year has passed, or a year has passed. The image never appeared again. In the darkest realm, perhaps as long as 100 million years have passed. I'm going to find him. Xuanhuan murmured, and she suddenly stood up and walked towards the darkest realm persistently and firmly. I won't let him forget everyone, and I won't let him feel lonely. Butterflies were flying around her, as if forming a bridge that transcended all time and space, guiding her across the dark door and into the dark dome. The colorful light reflected the brilliant colors, like a rainbow, disturbing the eternal darkness. Who? How dare you pass through the dark vault? The world of white mist has disappeared. Has Wushang walked out of that small mountain village? No. It's the woman who disappeared without a trace back then? How could she reappear? At this moment, in the dark dome, dark eyes lit up on countless dark giant stars, and many dark supreme beings exclaimed. The end of 10,000 paths, gone without return, in this life, she reappeared. Don't take action. Her destination seems to be the darkest realm. Enter the cage yourself and don't worry about her. In the dark dome, voices sounded one after another, and all the creatures in the dark dome were watching. The rainbow-like bridge was moving, and finally, a section of the rainbow flew to the realm that was darker than darkness and more lonely than silence. The darkest realm is a restricted area for all life. Not even dark creatures can set foot in it. According to legend, there is a dam connected to the other side of the darkest realm. At this moment, in the vast dome of darkness, a rainbow bridge spans the sky, and on that colorful bridge, Yongzi is dressed in a white dress, with unparalleled elegance, and the world is completely dark, which makes her look particularly spotless, like a fairy who transcends the world. She looked at the darkest realm ahead, turning a blind eye to the many enemies in the dark dome. She walked lightly to the darkest realm and stepped into it. Her figure disappeared and was never seen again. Colorful rays of light scattered across the sky and earth. At this moment, on a mountain peak, the lonely man was sitting under an old pine tree that had been dead for who knows how many years, without raising his head. The years pass by very quickly, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years. When the existence of time is completely forgotten, living becomes a kind of torture. If life is really lived for the love and warmth of the world, when the world behind you has been completely destroyed, life will have no meaning. His realm is invincible, number one in the world, surpassing many supremes, but he was defeated by eternity. Eternal silence and solitude. Even, I no longer have the courage to break through the dam, no longer have the courage to fight against the darkness. He didn't speak fast, but he didn't stop. This story seemed to require no thought, and had already been engraved in his mind. But when he had fallen into the darkness, abandoned himself and became crazy, and was almost alienated by the darkness, he still saw a ray of light in the darkness. There seemed to be a ripple on the face of the lonely man, as calm as a lake. He seemed to be smiling and sad, and continued to tell his second story that no one was listening to. In the endless darkness, she came. Once upon a time, he was just a little girl that he took care of when he was the Emperor of Heaven. At that time, although she was talented and intelligent, her realm was far from mature. He once promised that he would take care of her for the rest of his life, and she said that she must stand side by side with him. His words paused and he was silent for a long time. At this point in the story, he seemed speechless. After a long time, he spoke again and said, "When darkness falls, he can only go on the road to quell the chaos. When his old friends betray him, and when the tide of darkness swallows up everything behind him, he thinks everything has been destroyed." But she was very strong. She grew up in blood and fire, crossed the boundless darkness, and came to his side. The girl who promised to be with him did it. He took care of her all his life, but he failed to take good care of her. She sacrificed herself to redeem him from the alien power of darkness. The name of this story is Farewell. His words became very soft, murmuring, as if he was saying something he didn't want anyone to hear. Her name is Xuanhuan. As the name was spoken, a tear suddenly fell from the corner of his eye. At this moment, some kind of terrifying power was suddenly added to his body, turning into terrifying chains of laws, completely tearing him apart and smashing him to pieces. The most lonely person in the world is actually like a powerless prisoner at this moment. He is struggling and resisting, but to no avail. The dead old pine tree has turned into a terrifying copper pillar, and the chain of this law has bound his body. The bones and flesh were tied to bronze pillars and whipped mercilessly. The great road disappears, the knowledge of God is extinguished, and the silent one is trembling. This is a torture that transcends all. He finally died in pain. Died for a long, long time. The copper pillars turned into old pine trees. The old pine trees looked like they had been dead for countless years. Under the old pine tree, a figure of a middle-aged man in white robe slowly appeared. He was spotless, his white robe was as new, and his expression was as indifferent as a lifeless rock, colder than ice. Nirvana is the return of all life. The Silent One whispered softly, and he looked towards the darkest realm, his eyes as cold as frost. Betrayal, farewell, there is nothing more hateful than this in life. After this dilemma, no matter how firm your heart is, no matter how perfect your situation is, it will become distorted, sad, angry and crazy. It is much easier to destroy a twisted, angry and crazy heart. He waved his hand, and a chess game appeared on the stone table. He plays chess with himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1234. Have you forgotten, in the Cauldron Star Realm, we robbed the Demon Peng clan and the others together. Xuanhuan stepped onto the land of the Cauldron Star Realm. As he walked, he used his supreme magic power to review his own cause and effect. In those scenes, another girl with exactly the same mind was running away with Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan took her and escaped one calamity after another. Everywhere he passed was turned into ashes. Unclean soul. However, in Xuanhuan's Taoist scenery, the girl in black skirt, the lonely person's heart ape, spoke coldly. She was like an indifferent stone. No matter how real the past scenes were, they could not arouse the slightest emotion in her. However, Xuanhuan was not discouraged at all. "I will definitely let you find yourself again," he murmured. Once upon a time, Xuanhuan was not afraid of the evil village. He once swore that although Ao is one household, the village will be destroyed by Ao. Now, even if the little monkey is really alienated by darkness, he still has to fight against darkness. He continued on, following the old path. He walked to the ghosts of the past, which have now turned into the pure land of life. Those boundless ghosts no longer wander in the world. He arrived at the former Brahma land, where a great battle once took place. People from the small mountain village attacked the Brahma land and killed the largest giant in the god realm, Brahma ancestor. It was here that Zhezing Sun, a master of the six-eared macaque clan, was rescued. Although he has become supreme and can reach the world in a single thought, Xuanhuan walks very slowly. He tried not to miss any place related to the little monkey, and patiently used his supreme magic power to look back on the past. Although all he got in exchange was indifferent responses from the lonely heart ape again and again. "Senior, Master, if he is so persistent, will there really be any results?" Lady couldn't help but speak and said. "Is it possible for creatures that have been alienated by darkness to find their former selves? Those who have been alienated by darkness can hardly be called living beings anymore. Indifference, destruction, and killing are almost all their only instincts. Everything that the creatures of the white mist regard as human nature no longer exists." The master lay down on the chair and spoke slowly. "It depends. Darkness itself will not alienate living beings. The laws of the universe contained in darkness are the foundation. When that law disappears, all living things will return to their original appearance. If the dead are transformed, they will turn into corpses and disappear. If the living are alienated, they will regain their humanity and walk out of the darkness." The Water Emperor was chewing on a brick made from the bones of the Supreme Corpse, and he spoke thoughtfully, saying, "In this way, if the original law of the universe can be solved, then all living things will be saved, and the darkest situation of all time will be rewritten." Dance Master smiled and said, "Clever." When Lady heard this, he became excited and said, "Senior, can you solve the original law of the universe?" Master Tiao suddenly felt helpless and said, "What do you think is the law of the universe? If I can solve it, why do I need to be ranked third in the world?" When the Water Emperor heard this, he looked at Xuanhuan, who was working hard with some distress, and said, "Then Master, isn't he doing useless work? All this is in vain." The one who jumped to the top just said meaningfully, "What he is saving is not the monkey mind, but his own heart. A person who is alone is not alone, so he breaks the path of silence. Is it true or false?" Master Tiao's eyes were full of expectation. From the moment he saw Xuanhuan, he already understood the role of this chess piece. Breaking the silence. If you are not alone, you are breaking the law. Now, Xuanhuan has reached a crossroads. Xuanhuan is still searching. In his constant pursuit, he forgot about time. He had left even the small mountain village and even the darkness behind. Finally, he arrived at the Huaguo mountain, the ancestral homeland of the six-eared macaque clan. However, the place was already empty, with only a few old monkeys left behind. Their realm was too low, and they were unaware of Xuanhuan's arrival. A waterfall rushed down from the cliff. Ao Wushuan's mind swept over it, and everything related to the little monkey here seemed to have passed away. Is it really not possible? Ao Wushuan was a little depressed. He sat on a big rock in front of the waterfall, feeling a little confused at the moment. Little monkey, when will you wake up? He was whispering, as if the words were spoken to himself. If I run again, I don't know where to go. I ran out of the underworld, from the immortal path to the holy path, from the holy path to the divine realm, from the divine realm to the chaos ancestral realm, and then to the forbidden world. Now, I have run from the forbidden world to the starting point. Back and forth, I really don't know where I should go. I used to run away constantly, but I couldn't escape. Now I keep searching, but I can't find it. The great dancers say I am Ao Bao. Yes, I have been running away all my life, but after running around and retracing my path, I realized that it was actually quite boring. I always wanted to escape the curse of life, but when I finally reached the end, I desperately found something from the past that I had desperately wanted to escape from to interpret the meaning of this life. Nothing is left, nothing is found. Now, the people in the small mountain village have been alienated. When darkness falls, the whole world will turn into darkness. You said, if you forget everything in the past, will my past become false? Ao Wushuan, who had always been optimistic, actually looked a little vain at this moment. He has a tendency to collapse. Senior, what's going on? In the Dao Jingdi, the Thunder Emperor and the Water Emperor spoke in shock. Looking back, he couldn't find his anchor. Master Tiao opened his mouth and said, "The Supreme One stands at the end of the path, like an ant climbing into the sky. But when an ant climbs into the sky, it will forget itself. When a person cannot find support from the past, he will gradually forget the past, and if he forgets the past, he will no longer be himself. Just like a ship, it is constantly damaged and repaired. When the last original plank is replaced, is it still the same ship? If you cannot find your own anchor, your own existence will become void. When self-existence has no meaning, it loses its existence. He's going to die." Xuanhuan spoke indifferently. "No, it's you who is dying. But, right now." A clear and beautiful voice suddenly came out. The deafening sound of the waterfall suddenly became silent. The huge water curtain waterfall in Huiguo Mountain was suddenly separated. A girl walked out of it. She is exactly the same as Xuanhuan, but her eyes are big and lively, like an autumn lake, with icy muscles and jade bones. Ao Wushuan opened his eyes suddenly and saw her. Little monkey. The person who walked out of the waterfall was Lu Kaling, the former princess of the six-eared macaque clan. Ao Wushuan stood up suddenly. At this moment, he was extremely surprised. The collapse of the avenue also stopped instantly. Unclean souls. In the Taoist landscape, the lonely man's heart ape roars. Ao Wushuan. As for Lu Kaling, as she walked out of the waterfall, a different kind of light shone in her eyes and she said, "That uncle didn't lie to me, you really came back to me. Where have you gone? Ever since we parted ways in the God realm, I have been here, waiting for you." She ran in front of Ao Wushuan. At this moment, her eyes seemed to have 1,000 words to say. Her smile seemed to bring life to Ao Wushuan's entire universe. At this moment, Ao Wushuan's eyes felt hot for no reason. At that moment, the supreme calamity came, and he almost lost his mind and entered the state of collapse, because he saw the nothingness of life. But at this moment, his heart was filled. Life has meaning. He had an anchor. At this moment, in Ao Wushuan's Taoist scenery, Xuanhuan suddenly felt an inexplicable power coming to him. No. She struggled, unwilling to give up, and her own existence was destroyed. The reason why the heart monkey can exist is because the lonely person, Ao Wushuan could not find an anchor in the past, but found an anchor in the present world, so the heart monkey that existed in the past no longer exists. The dancing master whispers. He sees everything. The dark heart ape represents the past. And Lucaling represents the present. Ao Wushuan wanted to change the dark heart monkey and find his own meaning from the long gone past, but he was still unable to do so and was almost destroyed by the supreme calamity. However, Lucaling, who exists in this world, has become Ao Wushuan's anchor. So the dark heart ape no longer exists. Ao Wushuan was not aware of all this. When he looked at Lucaling, he was so excited that he said, "I'm never running again, I'm never running again, I'm right here." But, at this moment, another peaceful but cold voice suddenly sounded in the waterfall. "This is not the place to be." Ao Wushuan was startled. He subconsciously raised his eyes and saw a middle-aged man in white robes walking out of the waterfall. He was spotless, his white robes were as new, and his eyes were calm and deep, like the universe and sky that had been destroyed countless times. He walked up to Ao Wushuan, and just by walking over, Ao Wushuan's Taoist scenery was forced to open. Boom! At this moment, Ao Wushuan couldn't help but tremble. "You!" He spoke subconsciously, feeling a deep fear and the urge to turn around and run away. However, he stood still. Even though he was sweating profusely and despite the fear in his heart, he stopped running away. This time, Ao Wushuan is here. Confront the Silent One. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Goexin. Chapter 1235. The Silent One comes step by step. Ao Wushuan faced him directly, motionless. "Ao Wushuan, don't be nervous. Uncle is a good man. He appeared here a few years ago and taught me a lot. He also said that I don't need to look for you, because you will definitely come to me." Lucaling saw Ao Wushuan, who seemed to be filled with nervousness, and couldn't help but speak. But the middle-aged man in white robe did not stop. He walked into Ao Wushuan's Taoist scenery. The Silent One. At this moment, Tiao Dashan, who was lying on the chair and enjoying the massage from Thunder Emperor and Water Emperor, suddenly became stunned. Omniscient, omnipresent, although you can't find Ao Wushuan, you know that he will definitely come back to find the little monkey. At this moment, Master Tiao looked extremely solemn and said, "You've been waiting." The dancing master really lost his mind. The lonely person is not alone, so he broke the silence and said, "You have already calculated it correctly, so you are waiting at the end of this game." The great dance master looked extremely sad. The key to breaking through the path of silence lies in the solitary person. If you are not alone, you will break the heart of silence. This is the answer that Master Tiao came up with after countless years of hard thinking. Therefore, when he saw Ao Wushuan and the Black Tower in the Ao Wushuan Dao scenery, he thought that Ao Wushuan was a secret chess piece chosen by Li Fan to break the silence Dao. But now, Ao Wushuan has indeed reached the crossroads of the Supreme Road. But the Lonely One was waiting at this intersection early. Moreover, he had already arrived at Lucaling's side. Lucaling is the key to Ao Wushuan not being alone. But Jie just said calmly, "No one can escape from this law." He can't, and neither can the people his tower shelters. At this moment, the Black Tower suddenly suppressed the silence. Facing this tower, Jie did not fight it personally. Instead, he waved his hand and attracted the attention of the dam. Previously, when faced with the darkness, Tiao Dashan thought about the dam. Tiao Dashan asked Ao Wushuan to run away and escaped, because Tiao Dashan knew that the only one who could suppress the Black Tower was the dam. Now, the dike has appeared. The hazy shadow, the vast sea of corpses, and some kind of mysterious gaze have arrived. The small Black Tower suddenly seemed to be eroded by some force. The several layers of the tower that had finally been deified became rusty, cracked, and almost completely destroyed. The silent man waved his hand, and the shadow of the embankment disappeared. Then, the rusty little tower fell into the hands of Jizhe. Then, Jizhe turned around and walked out of Ao Wushuan's Taoist scenery. He did not retrieve his own dark fire and dark rose, nor did he kill the soul of the great god, nor did he care about the lonely heart ape. It seemed as if the only purpose of his coming was to take away this small black tower. When you see her, you find the meaning of your existence, right? Jizhe spoke to Ao Wushuan, looked at Lu Kaling, and said, "She is your salvation, your hope, your light." He smiled and said, "I understand how you feel. When the meaning of a person's life is finally clear, it is a happiness that transcends everything. But equally, it's painful to be deprived of happiness." He suddenly raised his hand and pointed towards Lu Kaling. "Uncle." Lu Kaling subconsciously spoke, but her figure had already disappeared. She was killed by the Quiet One and no longer existed in this world. Little monkey. Ao Wushuan's eyes turned red when he saw this scene. He rushed over with tears in his eyes, but could not catch Lu Kaling's disappearing shadow. Little monkey. Ao Wushuan was stunned. He stood there, his body trembling, as if the most important thing in his life had been taken away. "Sorry, I am a lonely person, good at giving people tragedy. Farewell this story, not only to him, but also to you." Jizhe smiled warmly, his tone was so gentle, as if he was comforting an old friend, and said, "The end of the darkest realm, the dam, is where all life ends." After saying that, the figure of Jizhe suddenly disappeared. He took away the 9-story black tower in Ao Wushuan's scenic spot, and completely killed Lu Kaling in front of Ao Wushuan. Then leave. The sound of the waterfall is deafening. The flowers and birds sing in Huaguo Mountain. Ao Wushuan was stunned. In his eyes, there was confusion and despair, followed by an unparalleled sadness and anger. Little monkey. Little monkey. He looked up to the sky and screamed. At this moment, he was filled with hatred. The darkest realm, the end dam. Tears rolled down from his eyes, and he said, "Ao Wushuan will not cut down the dam, I swear that I will not be a human being." The supreme energy is earth-shattering. The passing of Lu Kaling took away the meaning of his life, and his heart was filled with anger. There is still anger, but when you see the dam, even the anger will disappear. By then, you will probably become the next silent one. The dancing master is mumbling. His old eyes were pale. Guzhe, the great disciple of Jizhe, was once the most likely being to become the second Jizhe. Throughout the ages, the solitary has been transformed and is regarded as the chess piece of the silence breaker. However, now that Jizhe is so easy, Ao Wushuan's fate has returned to Jizhe's path. Ao Wushuan lost Lu Kaling, and anger and revenge were his last motes. But facing the dike directly will extinguish people's anger and lead to despair. At that time, Ao Wushuan. He will also become a silent person. In a small mountain village. Good stuff. Tisk, there are so many top-notch ingredients, you can have a good meal. Don't waste it. Save some. It won't be so easy to eat it again in the future. The village was extremely lively, and the villagers were preparing for the feast. Uncle Zhang sharpened his knife and slaughtered one supreme creature after another. Aunt Wang and a few peasant women washed vegetables and cut meat very quickly. The child, Wang Xiao'er and Arya were running around playing and having fun. This scene seemed like a lifetime ago. The group of dark ancestors who had come to attack the third largest village in the world and this group of simple-looking villagers were basically two groups of people. In this small mountain village, even though they have awakened, they still live an ordinary life. Enjoying the ordinary excitement in the world of mortals. If the meat is stewed a bit, your cultivation will be lost. It will take a lot of effort to bite the meat. The second uncle was beside him and spoke cheerfully. Now, he has completely become immortal, but his mentality has not changed at all and remains the same as before. And at this moment, outside the small mountain village, a middle-aged man in white robe walked out of the billowing black mist. He looked at the small mountain village in front of him with a smile in his eyes. His death is coming, and after his death, only anger will remain. He will return to silence in front of the dam. He walked into the small mountain village. The lonely ones enter the village. At this moment, in the small mountain village, many villagers who were busy preparing to have a banquet suddenly fell to the ground one by one. They seemed to be in a coma, as if they were asleep. Wherever the silent one passes, even the grass becomes extremely barren. He walked through the sleeping crowd without even looking at the dark corpses. Walked straight to the front of the small courtyard. He looked at the door plaque and stared at the words Wu Er Xianting for a long time. The master is not at home, so entering without permission would be too disturbing. I'm here to get the lamp. Please bring it out. He spoke. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1236. I'm here to get the lamp. Please bring it out. The words of the silent one rang out. In the small courtyard, there was silence for a moment. Immediately afterwards, there was a sudden roar of a real dragon, and the shadow of the 9 heavenly dragon appeared. Its huge dragon claws grabbed at Jizhe so hard that it could almost break the sky. At the same time, the phoenix rang in the sky, the huge phoenix shadow, each wing pierced the sky, and the true flame of the phoenix was like a vast ocean, overwhelming the sky and the earth. The spider web is darkly knotted, like a dragnet, blocking all escape routes. There was even a giant bow being drawn, and an arrow seemed to be shot out from an eternal string, shocking the world. There are also pages of ancient books turning over, with countless words exuding the true meaning of the Supreme Dao, just like a prison of the Dao. Moreover, in this small mountain village, the combat power of the real dragon, phoenix, etc. is even more terrifying than when they attacked the Tiao Dashan. Coupled with bows, books, etc., even if the great jumper is here, I am afraid he will be suppressed and killed. However, Jizhe just watched indifferently. The terrifying claws of the real dragon, the boundless flames of the phoenix, the net that reaches the sky and the earth, the words of the great avenue with the supreme true meaning, the arrow of time and space that penetrates the eternity. Suddenly they all disappeared. As soon as he thought of it, so many bright and vast supreme attacks, approaching this law, were all annihilated. The small courtyard was quiet for a while. I came here just to get the lamp, please give it away. The silent one spoke again. He was polite, and although he could suppress everything, he did not break down the door. After a long time, squeak. I saw a gorgeous woman opening the door. She is dressed in white and has a beautiful face. She seems to transcend time and cause and effect. She is elegant and calm, gentle and calm. She held the sword in her right hand. The sword was a rusty sword, stained with rust, and the edge was frayed. The left hand is holding a wooden tray. In the wooden tray, there are 8 ancient bronze lamps burning with dark fire. Thank you very much. The lonely man stepped forward calmly and took the 8 lamps from the woman's hand. With your current level of cultivation and his sword, why don't you take action? Maybe you have a slim chance of killing me, maybe. After taking the lamp, the silent man suddenly spoke again. The woman in white clothes said calmly and calmly. Although I am determined to fight, my master's sword cannot kill the poor people. Hearing this, Jizhe suddenly smiled and said, Is this so? He said nothing more and slowly left the small mountain village. Life and death are boundless for eternity, without thinking or forgetting. I am alone in a tomb thousands of miles away, and there is no place to express my desolation. As the lonely one goes away, a sad song seems to be singing between heaven and earth. It's been a long time since the silent one left. The people in the village are still sleeping, and it seems difficult for them to wake up. In the small courtyard, the master worked so hard to gather 8 lamps, but now they are all possessed by the silent one. The old hen's words were full of worry and helplessness, and she said, "Master's game, has it been broken?" On the other side, the real dragon was also a little angry and said, "Doshu, why don't you take action? You might as well give me the master's sword. Maybe you can stop him for a while." However, Doshu opened his mouth and said, "Pointless. So what if we hold him back for a while longer? What if we even have the chance to kill him? If killing him is a necessary thing, the master will kill him on his own, so why stay here until today?" True Dragon said. "But now, all the people the master cares about have been alienated. That dead dog didn't protect Xuanhuan and the others at all. You were deceived, and now the master's lamp has also been taken away by the quiet one. Master can't even save his anchor. He's already lost, completely lost. It's better to kill him and fight." Even the old hen looked at the peach tree and said, "The method of starting a prairie fire with a spark will not work. Now the path chosen by the master has been ruined by the quiet one. If this continues, the master may really become another quiet one." Doshu said firmly. "Then wait until the master becomes another silent one." Time flies. In the blink of an eye, half a year has passed. Within half a year, darkness completely eroded the entire forbidden 9 continents, and even the secret world of reincarnation was shrouded in darkness. The small mountain village that has not yet been destroyed is the last place that is not enveloped by the source of the black mist. Black and white still guard reincarnation with the way of no beginning and no end, but the world is black and foggy. Even if reincarnation has the power to reappear the world's creatures, there is no pure land where creatures can stand. In the past 6 months, time seems to have stood still. Without life and civilization, time seems to have returned to its original indifference and meaninglessness. The universe is cold. Deep in the dark vault, to the darkest realm. All light in this area will fade away. After entering this area, Yun-11 felt that time passed so quickly. She couldn't see the way forward clearly, and she didn't know where the darkness around her ended. She kept going, because she knew that Li Fan was in this darkness. At the beginning, she would deliberately remember the time, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years. But later, the concept of time became weaker and weaker in her heart. Maybe 30 million years have passed. Maybe 50 million years have passed. She has forgotten. Forgot to find time. But she was not defeated by loneliness and loneliness in her heart. The longer time passed, the stronger she missed Li Fan. "Great Demon King, where are you? Great Demon King, do you still remember us? Do you remember me? Great Demon King, don't forget everything behind you, I'm looking for you, I will definitely find you." She kept moving forward, and kept moving, but there was still darkness before her eyes, and darkness again. 100 years have passed in the forbidden world. In the past 100 years, no one in the small mountain village has left the small mountain village, as if the village has been forgotten by the world. Within 100 years, in the black fog outside the mountain village, some black fog creatures gradually emerged, like ghosts and spirits. They sometimes tried to attack the small mountain village, but they all failed. Later, the creatures of the black mist simply ignored the existence of the small mountain village. Before reincarnation. On Nahi Bridge, black and white have been sitting there for 100 years. "Master, 100 years have passed, can that person still come back?" Po Meng asked. She had experienced countless years, but none of them were as difficult as this time. She spent every year waiting. "I really want to pull out the tooth monster. Mingzhi and Tianan were also whispering. Nanfan and the others have been alienated for hundreds of years, and entered the Dark Dome. One of the current 10 palaces of hell, the former Yin ancestor Qing Chen murmur. Are we the only ones left holding on in this world? Demon ancestor Wei spoke. However, Black and White looked indifferent and said. Even if we are the only ones left holding on, we should hold on until the end of our lives. And at this moment, somewhere in a hidden place, the gate of all ways stands. Even the hidden place here has been invaded by darkness, and there is black mist outside the door. And inside the door, a middle-aged man is climbing the ladder of knowledge. He silently read each book of Dao, which already possessed the supreme Dao, so he read quickly. It was Xuanhuan. He entered the gate of 10,000 Daos and was doing the final penance. For 100 years, he had not spoken a word or had the slightest emotion. The only thing is to practice Tao and improve your strength. But there was always an underlying determination in his eyes. That was his desire for revenge, as solid as a rock. Time is still passing. In the blink of an eye, 500 years have passed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Goexin. Chapter 1237. In the darkest realm, tens of billions of years have passed. Yungzi is still moving forward. She is still searching, trying to find someone in the vast black field, like looking for a needle in a haystack. Now, Demon King. She is persistent and determined, spending tens of billions of years alone. Outside world. Soon, 5,000 years passed. The small mountain village still exists, but in the eyes of the Dark Dome, it is equivalent to non-existence. No one would mess with that small mountain village anymore, and the darkness had completely forgotten it. No one goes to attack reincarnation. In the era when all the great gods of darkness have perished, the great road without beginning or end has replaced ignorance and become synonymous with being the third in the world in the eyes of the world. Dark Dome. 5,000 years ago, the Silent One absorbed the last two disciples, the Dao of silent killing and silent knowledge. They completely achieved the silent Dao and became one of the supreme beings. But unfortunately, he couldn't find the other souls of Tiao Dashan, so Mo Dao has been useless. But he has remained active over the years. Other supreme beings are floating in the world, almost never born, but he walks around the dark stars, looking for dark creatures in the world, recruiting disciples and teaching regardless of class, and the Silent One has tens of millions of followers. The best in the Dark Vault. Moreover, his followers are still growing rapidly, and he has almost become the most famous supreme being in the Dark Vault. Even many heavenly emperors and quasi-superior masters followed him and listened to his teachings. In this regard, no one dares to comment on the many supremes in the dark sky. After all, regardless of strength, the Silent One is the only disciple of the Silent One, and his status is by no means comparable to other supremes. Based on this, he can enough. At this moment, on a certain dark star. Yes, bite harder. Dark Li Fan sat on the dark throne and spoke. He looked boredly at the other side, where the big black dog was chasing Dark Wu Date and biting him. 5,000 years have passed, and the big black dog has still not been alienated, and still maintains his white mist body. It is the only white mist creature in the entire Dark Dome. No one in the Dark Vault dared to say anything. After all, there was no point in making the person on the Dark Throne unhappy just because of a dog. Dark Wu Date, although he has been alienated, is still howling and running around after being bitten by the big black dog. The progress is too slow. We have just reached the Dark Emperor level. Don't sleep, give me more strength. Dark Li Fan shook his head, and at the same time, he threw Dark Wu Date directly into a cage. In that cage, there are all kinds of dark creatures. Dark quasi-superior demonic dragons, giant lions, day-swallowing pythons, etc. were all caught by Dark Li Fan personally for Dark Wu Dade, and they are all very good-mouthed beings. Dark Wu Dade began to be eaten by various quasi-supreme creatures. He let out a miserable scream, but after being eaten into pieces, he started to use his skills to be reborn. After taking care of Wu Dade, Li Fan took another look at the others. The dark south wind was playing music, and all the musical scores of the Dark Dome were placed in front of her for her to practice. Dark Xiling was painting, and her scroll was completely dark, as if she was trying to draw darkness into the painting. Dark Long Xuanhuan was practicing martial arts. He evolved various phenomena such as the Dark True Dragon. He was very destructive and smashed the Dark Superstars one after another. Although Dark Lu Rang has been alienated, he is still planting grass. He has planted grass all over the dead and barren stars. Occasionally, the stars he is planting grass will be exploded by Long Xuanhuan, and a fight will break out between the two. Great War. Darkness Ching Chen was reciting sutras, but the sutras he recited were horrifying. Hundreds of years ago, several emperor-level dark creatures mistakenly entered the star where he was reciting sutras, and were directly destroyed and turned into the source of darkness. In the darkness, Dugu Yuking was practicing his sword. He left everyone alone and embarked on the road to challenge the heavens. Although he was only in the realm of the Emperor of Heaven, 100 years ago, he killed a quasi-superior creature with one sword and was known as the Dark One, the most majestic dark star in the sky. Dark Zhongli also traveled all over the world. He visited famous mountains and rivers in the Dark Dome one after another, and dropped chess pieces one after another. However, his strength is unknown, but his reputation is great. Everyone who has seen him take action is said to be dead. In fact, Zhen Yuzhang couldn't help but wanted to kill him, but the being on the dark throne looked sideways and frightened the Darkness Supreme away. Dark Linju is depicting the general trend of the world. His Dao scenery land can depict 9 kinds of terrains of creation. However, in the Forbidden World, he only found the Xuanhuan land and so on. Now in the Dark Dome, those long-lost terrains are actually there. His strength steadily improved. Dark Subakian was refining medicine. She showed up at least occasionally, but occasionally asked Long Xuanhuan to catch some dark creatures for her. She had no idea what she was doing. Guangming Gonggaya followed Guangming Xining on the road. Read more, walk more. Darkness Xining and Darkness Gonggaya are regarded as beings that cannot be provoked, and even Supreme are afraid of them. Thousands of years ago, there was a Dark Emperor who tried to take action against Gongya, but was killed by Xianning. The name of the Dark Devil shook the sky of darkness. In addition to Nanfan Xiling and others, Huo Ling Mu Jianing, Mu Wanking, Wu Xiaokan and others were also brought to the Dark Dome by Dark Li Fan and occupied a big dark star. Growing and practicing. Sometimes, Huo Ling and others would even organize attacks and start wars with other dark stars, causing considerable fluctuations every time. Many giants were dissatisfied with this, but no one dared to step forward. After all, the one on the dark throne could beat them all. The world flies by. 10,000 years have passed. In the 10,000th year, Dark Wu Dade burst out with a powerful energy today. He is about to touch the Supreme. Damn fat man, you deserve to be cultivated by this emperor every day, and you will finally become supreme. The big black dog's eyes were a little excited. Dark Wu Dade, bathed in the powerful Dark Avenue, resonated with cause and effect, and the supreme heavenly sword fell and chopped on him. All kinds of weird disasters came as promised, trying to destroy Wu Dade's body. And the Dark Wu Dade is constantly reborn in various destructions, and every inch of flesh and blood is evolving toward flawlessness. The supreme path he proved is the path of flawlessness. This golden body is indestructible and immortal. Anyone who wants to kill him can kill him today. I don't care. Dark Li Fan's words suddenly rang out and spread throughout the dark sky. Suddenly, in the darkness, there were many dark supreme gazes. Over the past 10,000 years, these former disciples of Li Fan have shown increasingly stronger qualifications in the dark sky. They have already attracted jealousy, but no one dares to openly kill them. After all, they are now dark creatures and members of the Dark Vault. Now I heard Li Fan speak in the darkness, and suddenly a giant claw came to kill in the darkness. This damn fat man once killed more than a dozen of my disciples with a slap on his butt. He deserves to be killed today. This is a supreme being. Taking advantage of the darkness, Wu Dade passed through the supreme calamity, and took action directly to strangle Wu Dade. Wu Dade had just survived a round of disaster and was reborn when his body was shattered by the supreme claw. Then, Wu Dade struggled to run his skills and was reborn again. The supreme road is not open to you. Another slap fell, and another supreme also took action. Wu Dade's cultivation path was extremely abnormal. Many strong men from the most powerful races were captured to serve as his sparring partners, and most of them were eventually killed by him. Those giants did not dare to take action against the one on the dark throne, so they focused their anger on Wu Dade at this moment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Goexin. Chapter 1238. Dark Wu Dade, in the dark sky, touches the supreme. After getting the promise from the one on the dark throne that he would not care about Wu Dade, 3 supreme men in the darkness took action to kill Wu Dade. Wu Dade was killed again and again. Every time the supreme existence took action, it was earth-shattering and it wanted to wipe out all the cause and effect. And he was reborn with difficulty every time, and every inch of flesh and blood was shattered thousands of times before reappearing. No, we take action, but are we helping him perfect the flawless way? Finally, a supreme being was shocked. They found that as they took action, Wu Dade's body became more abnormal every time he was reborn than before. Invite the fire of the 9 netherworlds, take the thunder of the dark sky, release the water of the river Styx, and kill them together. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, and the 4th supreme being appeared. Brother Luoming, are you going to take action too? The other 3 supremes were all a little surprised. Luoming, this is an extremely ancient supreme being. It is said that he was already the emperor of heaven during the years when the dark ancestors dominated the dark sky. After the dark ancestor was taken to the forbidden world, the dark sky was empty. Luoming and other people who were closest to the supreme became favored by darkness and became the most powerful supreme giant. They can even be called venerable. The supreme being called the venerable, it is said that everyone knows more than 2 supreme ways. Although it is far from being comparable to the master Tiao Shen who knows everything, for ordinary supreme, this is already a huge chasm. These people can be creatures of darkness, but they cannot be supreme beings of darkness. Their previous lives were too unclean and should be strangled. Venerable Luoming's voice is ringing. At this moment, all kinds of terrifying killing calamities, such as the 9 nether fire, the thunder of the dark dome, and the water of the Styx, crashed down, all hitting the body of Dark Wu Dade. Not just Luoming, but the strongest Dark Supremes seem to have reached a consensus. Yes, those old monsters, those Supremes called Venerables, seem to not allow the 10 Supremes and 2 Fierces to attain Supreme status. The 10 Lords and 2 Evils have been too domineering over the past few years. They have made trouble in the Dark Vault and offended too many people. As long as the one on the Dark Throne doesn't protect them, there will be many people who want to kill him. Many people woke up and understood the situation. Damn, that's too much. The Dark Wu Dade was also screaming at this moment. He was so angry that he was reborn again and again. Then, he actually swallowed all the fire of the 9 netherworlds, the thunder of the dark sky, the water of the Styx, etc. alive. Then, his soul was completely destroyed, and not a drop of blood remained. Completely killed by cause and effect. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. They once followed the One and were enemies of darkness. This is the ending they deserve. Venerable Luo Ming spoke indifferently. But the one on the dark throne just smiled and said, "Good kill. I've long disliked this fat man, but now I'm in trouble." He simply closed his eyes and fell asleep. This made Venerable Luo Ming and others frown. Hey, what's going on? He cultivated the 10 Dark Lords and 2 evils for thousands of years, and now, he actually watched the Dark Wu Dade die when he touched the Supreme. But, just when everyone was silent, suddenly, in the silence, a huge fat butt suddenly appeared above Venerable Luo Ming. "Eat the fat man's ass." A roar sounded. Luo Ming raised his eyes, very surprised, and said in horror, "How are you still alive?" He tried his best and punched away. This punch caused countless dark stars to explode. However, Luo Ming felt a numbness in his arm when it hit the huge buttocks, and then it broke directly. What? Luo Ming was shocked in his eyes and hurriedly used the Great Dao to leave the place. I saw that the space he was in was directly split open, the space was destroyed, and the Tao turned into nothingness. And the Dark Wu Dade has reappeared. His body is filled with supreme energy. Dark Wu Dade has proven to be supreme. The way to perfection. How come, the thunder of the dark sky, the water of the Styx, etc. can't destroy you? Venerable Luo Ming was really surprised. Even the true Supreme Being has only one way of thinking when encountering that kind of murderous calamity. But, who knows how Wu Dade managed to survive? The flawless way is actually close to this law, you pervert. Moreover, he discovered that the flawless way demonstrated by Wu Dade was directly close to this law. It should be noted that if the Supreme One wants to reach this step, he must be tempered by this law. I understand, I understand. At this moment, he finally understood why the man on the dark throne was so relieved and ignored him. This damn fat man's foundation is too terrifying. Since we have become supreme, let's stop this matter. Venerable Luo Ming spoke with a gloomy expression, turned around and left. Just leaving like that? I'll kill you. Dark Wu Dade spoke angrily and was about to pursue him. Wow, stop chasing me. If I chase you, I won't be able to beat you to death. Do you think you are the third best in the world? The big black dog spoke contemptuously. The Dark Wu Dade looked at the big black dog and said quietly, "You bitch, after so many years, I have bitten Fatty very hard. Fat Master wants to eat dog meat hot pot today." He rushed towards the big black dog. However, the big black dog bared his teeth and said, "Damn fat man, are you floating? Do you really think this emperor has bad teeth? It goes right down the throat." Ah! Wu Dade suddenly cried out in pain. He looked at the big black dog in disbelief as if he had seen a ghost and said, "I'm so powerful, you can still bite me." The big black dog just said, "There is nothing in this world that I cannot bite." The man on the dark throne thought for a while and spread the word to the world. The 10 deities and 2 evils have not touched Wushanqian. Anyone other than Wushang can kill them. I will not interfere. After they touch Supreme, Supreme can take action, and I won't interfere. Hearing this, the Dark Dome suddenly made waves. For a time, countless heavenly emperor-level and quasi-supreme masters began to form groups to hunt down 10 of them. The Dark Vault is surging. From the day he spoke, Nanfan and others lived a bloody life in the Dark Dome. Years fly by. In the 11,000 years, Duguyuking, who traveled through the dark sky and challenged countless strong swordsmen, touched the supreme swordsmanship on a dark star. That day, the Dark Dome shook, and countless supreme beings intervened to block it. The dark stars fell one after another, the earth exploded in the universe, and the sword light shook the entire sky. In the end, the infinite sword light cut off the heads of the 2 supreme beings. The name of the sword master was powerful in all directions. In the 11,300th year, Long Xuanhuan's martial arts touched the Supreme and also experienced a bloody battle. In the end, the four Dark Supremes did not escape. Before the lawless way he proved, they all turned into the lamb to be slaughtered. In the 15,000 years, Lin Zhuchen attained enlightenment, and his name was Wuxi. In the 18,000 years, the South Wind achieved the stringless way. In the 21,400th year, junior sister Subakian attained enlightenment. Her path was extremely strange. On the day she attained enlightenment, the whole world was in an uproar. There was a venerable man who tried his best to induce the embankment to kill her, but he was killed by the Dark Throne. The one who killed him. She proved the way of no death and no life, which was once suspected by the world. This way may be comparable to no beginning and no end, but no one can verify it. In the 27,000 years, Gongya attained the Dao. The day she attained the Dao was extremely mysterious. A magic pot suppressed the sky, making her as quiet as death. It wasn't until 100 years after she attained enlightenment that rumors spread. The path she attained was extremely terrifying. It might be the legendary incompetent path. The three supreme beings who tried to stop her that day were all swallowed up by her. A sea that accepts hundreds of rivers is great when it has tolerance, but having no tolerance means infinite growth, a supreme way that can accommodate other supreme beings. She is also the first being to be called a venerable because, from the day she attained enlightenment, she has mastered more than one supreme way. At the same time, their new group of supremes have also caused countless disputes, mainly focusing on the issue of who is strong and who is weak. Some people say that Wuji Sword Dao is the strongest, some say that martial arts cannot be respected, and some say that there is no life or death. He is the real king. But these arguments were fruitless. Now, only four people, Zi Yiling, Lu Rang, Qing Chen and Zhang Li, are left who have not yet realized the Supreme Dao. But as time passed, the entire Dark Dome became more and more nervous towards the remaining four people. Because, according to speculation, they should have taken that step thousands of years ago. Now, 30,000 years have passed, but it is still silent. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1239. Dark. Eternal darkness, boundless. Yongzi has been searching for nearly 3 trillion years. 3 trillion years is an unimaginable torture for any life in the universe. In these 2 long years, Yongzi has even forgotten where she came from and where she is going more than once. Even the self will be forgotten. However, she stopped again and again to allow herself to remember everything with her heart. Perhaps, because she knew that Li Fan must be in this boundless darkness, she was able to persevere. As long as there is hope ahead, the fire in my heart will always burn. But what about Li Fan? She does not know. After all, this darkest realm blocked all perception. It was like falling into a whirlpool and an abyss, cutting off all connections with the outside world. What is Li Fan facing? Does he know that he is looking for him? She knew that Li Fan must be there, but Li Fan might not be able to sense their presence. This is the biggest difference. No, in this area, that inexplicable law is becoming more and more obvious. Suddenly, she felt as if she could hear the sound of the waves rising and falling. Over the years, she has had auditory hallucinations more than once, but they are never so real. She rushed forward, and then she saw an endless ocean. It was a black sea. The source of the black mist turned into black water and gathered together. Amidst the ups and downs of the waves, the corpses of the supreme beings were laid out, like dead fish and shrimps on the water without being picked up. That sea is connected to the end of this darkest realm. She walked slowly over, and just being close to the ocean made her feel an inexplicable sense of horror, as if the ocean represented destruction, weirdness, and ominousness. She tried her best to get closer. During the ups and downs of the waves, a cluster of waves hit her. She used all her strength to bombard her with her cultivation. When she took action, her supreme cultivation actually blossomed. Persistence has gone through 3 trillion years. Since history, no one has ever achieved this step. After all, even the Supreme Being has a maximum lifespan of only 10 trillion years. This is the number of days. The Supremes are immortal, but they are subject to supreme calamity. When their own anchor disappears, the Supremes will gradually wither. Therefore, in a sense, the supreme lifespan is determined by their anchors. And what thing in the world can last for more than 10 trillion years? Time can wither everything. However, Yongzi broke through this limitation, because her anchor seemed to last forever. Li Fan. Moreover, the great path she has demonstrated at this moment may be unprecedented, and even she herself is not aware of it. Black waves splashed over, and she suppressed them with her supreme cultivation. However, the waves actually broke through everything, and she could only avoid them. The black waves surpassed the boundary between the darkest territory and the Black Sea, and broke into the darkest dark territory. Suddenly, the darkest dark territory became wider and deeper. The darkest dark realm is only formed by some waves splashed by this black ocean. Yongzi was surprised. The darkest realm is definitely one of the weirdest places in the world. It blocks all perception and is boundless in darkness. Even the Supreme Ones dare not step into it. However, it is only formed by 1 or 2 black waves. So how strange is this Black Sea in front of us? What about Li Fan? He is not in the darkest realm. Is he in this sea? She was thinking. Boom. At this moment, the surging waves suddenly began to rise and fall. She saw a layer of black waves hundreds of meters high, rising heavily and then falling again. Pictures were actually reflected in the black waves. It was a picture of a small mountain village that was swept up by a big wave and then smashed into the Black Sea. Those pictures disappeared immediately. No. Those images are his memories. Yongzi noticed something. The big black waves deprived Li Fan of his memories. During the ups and downs of the waves, everything that belonged to him was crushed. Between the ups and downs of the waves, she saw a pale picture. She had seen that picture scroll, which was drawn by Li Fan when he met Zizhe. At that time, on the picture scroll, there were mountain peaks that transcended cause and effect and time, and in the distance, there were small mountain villages. But now, all the scenery in the picture has faded. The small mountain village full of red dust and smoke has gone to nowhere, and the picture has become pale and monotonous. She vaguely saw that in the picture, there was only a mountain with nothing left. On the mountain, under the withered pine trees, there seemed to be a person sitting alone, and his figure turned pale. No. At this moment, she suddenly remembered the lonely man sitting alone under the dead pine tree before. Could it be that Li Fan is also going to become a lonely person? No. I won't let you become the silent one. Yongzi suddenly rushed towards the Black Sea desperately. At this moment, no matter whether it was fear, weirdness, or ominousness, nothing could stop her. The Black Sea seemed to be aware of her approach. The black waves surged into the sky, forming a curtain of terrifying waves, killing everything. Bang! She passed by a big wave, and some white hair actually appeared on her temples. Cut away my millions of years of existence. At this moment, she completely understood the terror of these big black waves. Can destroy her past. When the past disappears, she ceases to exist. However, she did not stop and continued to attack, like a bird flying towards the sea. The ocean roared, the huge waves shook the sky, and the furious waves rolled in, like a tsunami. The waves were surging, and this dead ocean was experiencing unprecedented fluctuations. The big waves crossed the border with the darkest realm layer by layer and became part of the darkest dark realm. At this moment, the darkest realm is expanding crazily. The dark realm, in the beginning, may only come from a few drops of water. Over the endless years, at most, there will be only a few small clusters of waves occasionally, and it has already formed a boundless cage that makes the supreme beings jealous. Now, the big wave has submerged into it, and the originally vast and boundless dark territory is swallowing up towards the dark dome of the outside world. In the darkest realm, countless dark creatures were horrified. What happened? The darkest realm is expanding, but in the blink of an eye, it has swallowed hundreds of thousands of dark giant stars. Run away quickly, or you will be swallowed up by the darkest realm, and you will fall into eternal silence. At this moment, even the darkness was filled with fear. The expansion of the darkest realm is also a great disaster for the Dark Dome. Even Supreme needs to escape. However, the speed of expansion of the darkest realm is too terrifying. The great Emperor is wailing, the Emperor of Heaven is crying, and even the Supreme Being cannot escape. What happened? What happened? The Supreme One was shocked and asking questions. The waves of silence and waves of destruction turned into the darkest realm. A calm and indifferent voice spread throughout the dark dome, and a middle-aged man in white robes appeared in the dark dome. The Silent One. As he waved his hand, a picture appeared. It was like the sky was falling, and the entire dark dome was visible. It was a black sea at the end of the expanding darkest dark territory. The Supreme Corpse is sinking and floating, and the waves are roaring to the sky at this moment. And a white figure, like a seagull, fights the wind and waves and rushes towards the depths of the sea. Good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1240. The whole world feels it. The expansion of the darkest realm caused great turmoil in the entire Dark Dome, and the appearance of the Quiet One allowed the world to see the scene on the other side of the darkest realm. Is that, the legendary Black Sea of Annihilation? Something ancient is whispering. Yes, the Black Sea of Annihilation, the birthplace of the Law of Darkness. Is that the end of 10,000 paths? She is actually crossing the Black Sea of Nirvana. Is she crazy? Incredible, every wave in the Black Sea of Nirvana can destroy the Supreme, but she actually managed to survive several major wave tribulations in a row. At this moment, everyone was looking at the girl in white in the picture. The waves are so huge that they can destroy the world at every level. They contain the power to destroy billions of people. Even the Supreme Ones will die. During the Great Wave Tribulation, corpses were swept up one after another, all belonging to the Supreme One. In that land, the illustrious and Supreme Being was just like a rotten fish and a shrimp, lying dead for thousands of miles. Every time she breaks through the big wave, her figure becomes much lighter. That is her past, her cause and effect, and her existence, which are being swallowed up and destroyed by the black wave. She actually became the Supreme Being, and this is an unprecedented way to be supreme. You're going to die. So what if he is the Supreme One? Without the law of nature, even if he is known as the third best dance master in the world, he will only die. Everyone is terrified. And at this moment, on a dark star, the dark Li Fan on the dark throne is also watching this scene. Coming soon. He looked a little dazed and murmured. Withered, and then. Inaudible. Beside him, a group of Li Fan's disciples also watched silently. The eyes of dark Nanfan, Long Xuanhuan, Duguyuking, etc. were deep and ruthless, and they did not seem to have any fluctuations. To the depths of darkness. In the black sea of silence. Destroy. Destroy again. In the blink of an eye, Yungzi has been wiped out by the black wave, killing hundreds of millions of years of existence. She has gone through 3 trillion years of darkness and loneliness. In those 3 trillion years, she has achieved her supreme way in an unprecedented time scale. However, even the existence of 3 trillion years is constantly being passed away at this moment. Tens of billions of years, hundreds of billions of years, her cause and effect and past are like catkins swept away by strong winds, scattered among the waves, never to be found again. The white hair on her temples gradually appeared. However, she still moved forward courageously. Boom! The ocean was roaring, the ocean was roaring, her actions angered the ocean, and the big waves turned into tyrannosaurs, giant beasts, etc., swallowing her up, and the intensity was 100 times greater than before. Her existence, measured in hundreds of billions of years, continues to disappear. However, she was already very close to the picture in the whirlpool of thousands of waves. She could see clearly that in the pale picture, only the old pine trees and the shadow that she had longed for were the only ones left. The great demon king, I'm coming. I won't let you be alone, I won't let you forget the past. I want you to always remember me. Big black waves lapped at her white dress. She was like a snow-white seagull, risking her own safety and approaching the whirlpool full of violent black power. Life is passing, existence is being worn away, and cause and effect are withering. She is like a blooming rose, but it is withered by the eternal cold winter. Finally crossed the big waves and arrived in front of the picture scroll. In the scroll, the figure was blurred and about to disappear. She stretched out her hand, her delicate fingers trembling slightly. No. The figure dissipates. She understood something. Li Fan has been cut off from the outside world for too long. In 3 trillion years, his connection with the anchor has been completely severed. So, he has fallen into a state of collapse? No. No, you won't lose your temper. At this moment, Yun 11's big pure eyes were filled with tears. She held the scroll tremblingly, but she didn't know how to save Li Fan. Anchor, let you see the anchor, I'm coming, the big devil. Her own blood suddenly flowed out of her hands. She is painting with blood as ink. The bright red blood, like a rose, keeps blooming on the pale scroll. She crossed the great waves and was cut off countless existences. Now she is like a flower that has been separated from its roots, like duckweed and fallen leaves. Although it has not withered yet, it is extremely dangerous. And now, she is losing her most precious supreme essence and blood. This is an overdraft of life. Not only was she overdrafted, she was simply squandering, wasteful, and desperate at this moment. Blood fell on the pale scroll. She was sketching the mountains and rivers, describing the avenues, and writing about cause and effect. She tried her best to make the small mountain village in her mind reappear on the scroll. The lonely mountain peak is connected to the distant mountains, and the road has appeared, connecting the small mountain village that seems to have stood forever outside the cause and effect. In the small mountain village, there are old men basking in the sun, farmers plowing the fields, and a few peasant women idle. Nothing happened, so we gathered in the courtyard to laugh and talk. The square house covers more than 10 acres and has 8 or 9 thatched houses. The elms and willows shade the back eaves, and the peach and plum trees in front of the hall. The distant village is warm, and the smoke in the ruins is still there. Dogs bark deep in the alleys, and roosters crow at the top of the mulberry trees. There is no dust in the house and courtyard, and there is plenty of space in the empty room. After being in a cage for a long time, you can return to nature. The simple and natural mountain village is now filled with a kind of bloody cruelty. Her face became paler and her vitality continued to drain away. She forgot about the pain and didn't care about life and death at all. She looked at the top of the mountain and under the withered pine trees. Big Demon King, I'm coming to find you. I'm here to accompany you. She used up her last blood to transform into herself and appear on that mountain peak. However, her life finally came to an end. 3 trillion years of supreme blood had been exhausted. The last gulp of her heart's blood fell on the mountain peak. Opposite the blurry shadow, it looked like a broken flower. Rose. Her figure disappeared. Complete silence. Yungzi, meteorite. But at this moment, the shadow in the scroll continued to solidify. It was a man, and he reappeared. There seemed to be sadness, injury, and anger in his eyes. Thousands of waves, endless whirlpools, and the power of the Sea of Annihilation are rushing towards the scroll, as if they want to continue to destroy everything in the scroll. But in the next moment, a man walked out of the scroll. He turned his back to the people and protected the scroll with his hands so that no one could see the face on his face. Boom! Thousands of waves of the Sea of Annihilation crashed down. The man let out a low roar of grief and anger. With this low roar, the entire Sea of Nirvana suddenly seemed to be bombarded by some power that transcended everything and exploded. The Sea of Annihilation, a tsunami erupted directly. Boom! The waves rise and fall, and the waves shoot out. The man with his back to the people raised his eyes and looked towards the end of the Sea of Nirvana. He looked everywhere, and across the Black Sea of Annihilation, the surging and thick black fog was actually split with the sea water, as if it had been cut apart by a sword. The big black wave that can destroy everything evaporates massively, and the endless black fog disappears in an instant. Under his feet, a road appeared, leading directly to the hazy phantom of the embankment. He walked towards the phantom of the embankment step by step. Seeing this scene in the dark vault, the endless dark creatures were all frightened. Is he going to attack the dike? He actually reappeared, just as he was about to collapse. The Black Sea of Annihilation, when the great god jumped, he could only move forward 10 steps. Now, he actually separated the entire Black Sea. Countless dark creatures are whispering. Now. The forbidden Zhu, Kaiwanzhou and small mountain villages covered by black mist. The small mountain village has been silent for countless years, and the villagers have been sleeping soundly since the Silent One entered the village. The weeds are growing wildly and the village is deserted. In the small courtyard, everything remains the same, neat and orderly. Buzz. At this moment, there was a sudden sound of swords trembling. In the small courtyard, a picture suddenly appeared. It was Li Fan, with his back to the people, alone, splitting the Black Sea of Annihilation, and walking towards the dam. Before reincarnation. Black and White, who had been sitting there for 30,000 years, suddenly opened his eyes. Senior Li. He whispered, and in his black and white eyes, across the distance of time and space, a picture appeared. The whole world agrees. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1241. All the creatures in the world inexplicably saw the scene in the Black Sea of Annihilation at this moment. The Black Sea is endless, the bones of the Supreme are piled up like mountains, and the waves are undulating. Every wave can kill the Supreme. However, the Black Sea was split open, and a road led directly to the hazy dam. The phantom of the dam made all living beings around the world tremble. The source of darkness, the birthplace of weirdness. Dike, if you look at it, you will go crazy. Is he going to attack the levee? The whole world was silent, and all living creatures subconsciously held their breath at this moment, as if they were afraid that if they made a single sound, they would be involved in that forbidden scene. In the dark dome, all the supreme beings appeared, staring nervously at the screen. Who has been able to get close to the dike in all eternity? Nobody. Now, I have witnessed with my own eyes that a being who was once regarded as the first person below the Silent One approaches the embankment and uses his monstrous wrath to cut down the embankment. The 10th time. The quiet words of the Silent One rang out, saying, "It's also the last time." The 10th time. As soon as these 3 words came out, everyone in the world was shocked. The 10th time, does this mean that he cut down the dam 9 times? How is this possible? No one can get close to the embankment, but he can survive 9 attacks. He is actually so strong. The world was shocked. This is an eternal secret. During the years when that man was cutting down the dam, the whole world was silent. Except for a dog, there was no third living being in the world. Therefore, those deeds that should have shocked the ages are unknown and unsung. What was said by the Silent One today shocked the whole world. The 10th time, will he succeed? Death, he will definitely die. Much darkness whispers. And Xuanhuan is taboo. Somewhere in a hidden place, among the gates of 10,000 paths that had been eroded by the black mist, some of the remaining supreme beings were extremely nervous at this moment. He can't die. If he dies this time, the world will be completely destroyed, and the creatures of darkness and the creatures of white mist will all return to nothingness. There was a mutilated supreme roaring, and his words were full of anxiety. Under the watchful eye of all living creatures. On the black ocean, Li Fan walked towards the dam step by step. The entire sea of nirvana trembled under his feet, not daring to stop him at all. He reached the hazy embankment. No one can see clearly what the hazy dike looks like, let alone the world behind the dike. However, at this moment, the laws of the universe transformed into real dragons, giant phoenixes, heavenly swords, divine spears, etc., slashing at Li Fan. That is the original law of the universe, the highest in the world, and the power that can destroy everything. Above all. At this moment, on the vast ocean, many supreme corpses exploded directly, turned into powder, and disappeared completely. Even in the event of supreme death, the body would be as indestructible as bright divine gold, but now, it is just like blue smoke, not even a dregs remains before this law. However, when Li Fan faced the dam directly, he just waved his hand. The sky was filled with dragons and phoenixes being destroyed, endless blades were disappearing, and the divine beasts and weapons that were transformed from this law had their sharp edges broken and their lives lost, but he was actually suppressed by him. This scene is extremely amazing. In the Dark Dome, there are many Dark Supremes, and they are all frightened to the extreme. It's so scary, he can actually resist the laws of the universe. As expected of the only 2 beings in the world who gave birth to this law, they jumped out of the eternal river, enough to make the dam pay attention. The attack on the dike has never been recorded in history. The world murmurs. Under the gaze of endless creatures, all shadows of the law are destroyed. Step by step, he approached the embankment. In front of the dam, the monstrous Benluchi was almost forming a storm, but it suddenly subsided at this moment. Li Fan faced the embankment. His words resound, and all the heavens listen. Destroy my disciple. Kill my beloved. Today, we have to cut down the dam. Li Fan's roar sounded, and he waved suddenly. Now. Tabu Xuanhuan, small mountain village, small courtyard. In the study, a rusty longsword suddenly disappeared from the spot. The longsword traveled through time and space and appeared directly in his hand. At this moment, when the longsword was in hand, all the rust that had remained for eternity suddenly disappeared, the divine flower bloomed, the sharpness was extremely sharp, and the energy shocked the sky. Open. Li Fan was roaring and slashed towards the embankment with his sword. Boom. The surging sword intent burned the black ocean millions of miles around, turning it into nothingness in an instant. However, a sword slashed at the phantom of the embankment, but the embankment did not move at all. Li Fan covered the sword face with blood and slashed again. No. It's so scary. Close your eyes. At this moment, countless supreme beings watching the scene through the screen felt their souls trembling, and supreme blood flowed out of their eyes. Just the picture alone is beyond the limit that the Supreme One can bear. Cover the sword with blood and slash it out with one strike. The dam was actually trembling slightly at this moment. Vaguely, it seemed as if a crack had been cut out of the dam. But the long sword in Li Fan's hand broke directly. The long sword broke, and Li Fan dropped the long sword and approached the crack. However, the mysterious power flowed, and the crack healed in an instant. The energy on the dam moved, and Li Fan was directly knocked back 100 steps. He can't get close to the embankment. Li Fan seemed to be crazy. He tried his best, his fists were stained with blood, and his palms broke the sky, but he was just like a trapped beast. Impacted again and again, only to be shaken back by the dam again and again. Li Fan has tried his best. But it couldn't shake the strange dam. He stopped before the dike. For a long time, no one knew what he was thinking. And at this moment, in the dark vault, the Silent One suddenly said softly, "This is the third story, incompetence. Nothing can be done." His figure suddenly disappeared. Then, he transcended the infinitely expanding darkest realm, appeared on the black ocean, and walked to Li Fan's side step by step. How does it feel to be powerless? Ji Zhe stood side by side with Li Fan. He raised his eyes and looked up at the dam in front, with a trace of self-mockery in his eyes. Old friends died, they were all alienated, and the beauty was destroyed, but facing the dam, there was absolutely nothing we could do. This feeling of powerlessness is despairing. He was silent for a long time, and then slowly said, "Let's go, I'll take you to see behind the dike." He led Li Fan to the embankment. In front of the dam, there are still several broken bones. Endless years have passed and they have been transformed into black by this law. The selfless person is the swan song of an era, an invincible and perfect state of mind, and a gifted talent. Ji Zhe looked at one of the withered bones casually and said, "His way can escape the punishment of this law. Without self, there is no destruction or destruction, but unfortunately he still died." Not long after, he pointed to another withered skeleton and said, "A person who does nothing is stronger than a person who has no self. If the same generation competes, I may not be his opponent. Even if I have mastered this law, it will be almost difficult to kill him. But, he is also dead. These two people are the most amazing people I have ever seen besides you, and they are also the biggest anomalies." Li Fan, on the other hand, glanced at the inaction and selflessness, and felt silent in his heart. Climb the dike. So what if you conquer the embankment? Haha, after the embankment, there will be only deeper despair. Ji Zhe spoke softly, and his words seemed to have a hint of powerlessness, saying, "What's more, you don't belong to this time and space. The embankment can't kill you, but you can never cross the embankment. I can't find your roots in the past or in this world, so the only possibility is that you come from the future. The power that belongs to the future cannot enter behind the dam. It belongs to the past and the present world without hope. You can't intervene. Seeing all your relatives and friends in this life die, what can you do?" The lonely man smiled lonely. At this moment, Li Fan looked behind the embankment. He was silent. There was silence for a long, long time. Life? Civilization. The Quiet One said, "What we regard as dazzling things is just a grain of sand that should not appear. The wind of this law blows gently and can never be found again. Love, hate, enmity, desire, greed, ugliness, kindness. The fireworks, life, and death you once cared about are just the wishful thinking of ants. The origin of white mist? The origin of black mist? It's just an unintentional rhythm in the universe. Life is an accident, a trivial accident." Ji Zhe's words were calm, but there was a sense of compassion, saying, "A small spray overturned the ant's nest, causing all the other ants in the nest to die. A surviving ant crossed the mud pond formed by the spray in the soil. After many difficulties, it finally reached the end of the spray. Origin. But he found that he was facing a sea. The sea never cares about the life or death of ants. The Silent One spoke a simple metaphor. At this moment, he recalled the moment when he stood on the embankment countless years ago. His old friend died, and the beauty sacrificed for him. He used his overwhelming anger to support himself to get here. But I found out how ridiculous it was. The surviving ants flowed through the mud pond, singing and crying, but what if they found the source? When I saw the truth of everything, my heart became cold. Betray. Farewell. Inability. This is the path of silence, the path of silence. Li Fan listened to his words and looked behind the embankment. The unquenchable anger in his eyes suddenly turned into an inexplicable sadness. Inexplicably self-deprecating. Mortal Tao, it's just wishful thinking. At this moment, his mood was broken. His eyes became as deep as a lonely person, as cold and calm as a lonely person. He is no longer sad, no longer angry, no longer full of fighting spirit. He became the new Silent One. At this moment, the world is silent. The entire universe fell silent. Countless creatures felt an unprecedented chill in their hearts. The second Silent One. What is behind the dam? The original law of the universe is the only truth in the world. Much darkness whispers. Dark Li Fan said nothing, sitting on the throne of darkness, but his eyes were filled with a deep disappointment. Small village. The peach tree, the phoenix, and the real dragon were all completely speechless. Silence. Before reincarnation, Black and White slowly stood up. Senior Li has become a silent person. He whispered. Prepare for the final battle, the real catastrophe has arrived. The whole world is speechless. On the embankment. Li Fan's breath was the same as that of Jizhe. Everything is silent. This seems to be the final outcome. Jizhe looked at Li Fan, a kind of sympathy suddenly appeared in his eyes. It's like pitying yourself. But when he showed such sympathy. That is at this moment. From behind the embankment, two figures came slowly. Those are the creatures formed by the two original laws. They appear above the embankments. You have violated this law 301 times. Do you know your sin? One of the creatures transformed from this law looked at the Quiet One indifferently. Following its words, inexplicable chains suddenly appeared, piercing the body of Jizhe. Copper pillars emerged, and Jizhe was tied to the copper pillars. The chain of this law struck hard on Jizhe's body. His bones were shattered, his skin was torn, and his flesh was mutilated. Until death. After dying for a long time, the Silent One reappeared. His face was pale and his body was trembling slightly. He seemed unable to stand up and knelt on the ground with difficulty, beads of sweat dripping down his face. A generation of silent beings, revered as the number one existence in the world, but in front of the creatures transformed from this law, they are actually powerless to fight back and can only be slaughtered by others. Those who have become silent should abide by this law from now on. The creature of this law then looked at Li Fan. It suddenly raised its hand, and a deep and dark law, like a brand, fell into Li Fan's body. Li Fan felt the brand in his body, suddenly raised his head, looked at the two creatures of this law, smiled brilliantly, and said, "Thank you. Thank you for the key." When the two creatures of this law saw this, they frowned and instantly noticed something. You. However, just as they opened their mouths, Li Fan suddenly raised his hand and slapped it casually. The two creatures of this law were actually slapped away. You actually dare to disobey this law. The power of this law will torture you. The creatures of this law were frightened, and black chains appeared instantly, trying to pierce Li Fan's body. When one is branded with the law from behind the dam, one will be like a silent person and can no longer resist the law, otherwise, one will be tortured. However, those moments when Benlu came into contact with Li Fan, all disappeared. The lock of this law cannot control Li Fan at all. You lied to us. You didn't become another Jingren? Didn't you walk on the path of nirvana? Those two creatures of this law were both frightened. They are the will of this law. Nothing can escape this law, and no one can deceive this law. Just now, Li Fan had clearly entered the path of silence, so they appeared and gave Li Fan the brand. Now, Li Fan seems to break away from the path of silence. How can this be? After entering annihilation, who can escape? And Jie suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Li Fan. There seemed to be excitement, surprise, and joy in his eyes. Li Fan smiled slightly and said softly, I have indeed become a person of tranquility, and I have indeed embarked on the path of tranquility. It's just that all the ways return to the ordinary, and the lonely way also returns to the ordinary. If I want to be peaceful, I will be peaceful. If I want to be ordinary, I will be ordinary. The Tao follows my heart. His words were very soft, and he smiled and said, after all, if you don't become the silent one, you won't be able to get the key to the back of the dam, right? He looked behind the embankment. At this moment, the entire embankment trembled instantly, and the energy flow was chaotic. At this moment, in the rear area, the endless dark dome, forbidden 9 continents and other places also instantly set off huge waves. Good afternoon and good night. There's a lot I want to say, but I don't think it's necessary to say it, so let's just leave it at that. The main part will definitely be finished in June, and we'll discuss the extras later. Good afternoon and good night.